Many of us are interested in topics related to the afterlife, but we are even more concerned about what happens during the first 3 nights in the grave. Does the deceased feel anything, and if so, what feelings arise? I will tell you about the secrets of the 3 nights in the grave, the research process of which no one will tell you about. I will ask my listeners to subscribe to my channel and like it. When the coffin is buried in the ground and the last lump of earth falls on it, a process begins, which many of us do not even suspect. During the first 3 nights in the grave, unusual phenomena occur that surprise and shock even the most sophisticated researchers. Gradually, as if receding from reality, the soul of the deceased begins to slowly fly around the place of its burial. This process lasts quite a long time, and it is often compared to how a butterfly leaves a cocoon. This is how this liberation from earthly attachments occurs. At this moment, the soul of the deceased is filled with new energy which simply does not exist in the earthly world. It carries both fear and relief. During this period, the soul is in an intermediate state, and just at this moment, various entities gather around the grave, trying to understand who left the world of the living. Various hypersensitive devices have recorded strange sounds and otherworldly phenomena that occurred near the grave at the time of burial, but invisible and inaudible to people. Since at this moment the body is plunged into complete darkness, the gates open before the soul, but it is seized with slight panic when it realizes that it is immersed in a completely different reality. And with each moment this feeling goes away, giving way to peace. At this time, a kind of purification takes place. The soul, saying goodbye to attachments, goes to what we can call the afterlife reality. No matter how strange it may sound, for a few more minutes after the burial, the deceased clearly distinguishes voices. The first few minutes of being in the grave is an integral part of the soul trance, which helps the deceased cope with the emotional burden left on earth. Practically the same feeling occurs in the deceased throughout the first night, and the energy between the worlds becomes permeable, allowing the soul to interact with another world. It is possible that on the 3rd night, the souls of the dead are able to appear to their loved ones to remind themselves. On the 2nd night, the soul of the deceased still feels a connection with the material shell, while the surrounding darkness, everything deepens. A feeling of loneliness arises. This experience can be shocking for the soul, for it is a loss of communication and perception. In this moment, a state of repentance arrives. The soul is on the verge of awareness, requiring forgiveness both for oneself and for others. In this state, the deceased feels an unprecedented connection with another world. At the same time, this night can become a time for unity with higher powers. Also, in this phase, the soul encounters the personification of its fears and regrets. This can manifest as dark forces, full of discontent and pain, that disturb the soul, condemning itself. This is not a punishment, but rather a result of the deceased's own actions, of dissatisfaction with life. Then the question arises, if the deceased feels discomfort, why doesn't he let living people know about it? All the energy that emanates from his grave is still so weak that living people simply do not perceive it. But even if they did, they could no longer help the dead body. The 3rd night is the culmination when the soul begins to understand that it is time to free itself from earthly shackles and move away from its dead body. At this time, a peculiar transformation occurs. This is a moment of inner purification, in which the soul, as if spreading its wings, begins to rise above the flesh. It is on this night that the deceased dwells in a state of cosmic consciousness. The deceased begins to feel unity with the universe, finding peace in what happened. Although the brain of the deceased has long ceased to function, the memory of life returns and spins like a kaleidoscope, but in a different sense. All events are seen as steps on the path to the development of the soul, even if some of them were full of suffering and difficulties. The deceased can feel a surge of light, warmth that envelops him, allowing him to understand that there is no longer a separation between him and the rest of the world. At this moment, the last meeting with the past occurs when the soul forgives and accepts everything that was, completing the cycle of suffering. In silent stillness, the deceased gains the opportunity to look at his life from a height, seeing not only his mistakes but also his strengths and achievements. One of the most shocking moments is that the deceased does not lose his feelings and energetic consciousness during the first 3 days. This raises many questions and disputes. Why can a soul that has lost its physical shell still feel the world around it? Returning again to ancient teachings, one can find mention of the fact that at the moment of death, the brain still continues, albeit weakly, to functioning, and consciousness can be in a state of trance. Literature based on testimonies tells of sensations the deceased is able to hear the voices of relatives and experience fear. And if, before the end of 3 days, he is not yet buried, he can feel touch. Modern research shows that loved ones often speak calmly even after his departure, and this has a deep meaning for all who remain. The first 3 nights are a time when the soul still burns in the rhythm of life, even if the physical body has already lost its strength. That is why there are so many different rituals at funerals. Seeing the deceased on his last journey, relatives try to ease his transition to a new state. The first 3 nights in the grave are a time of transition, a time of contact with eternity. When the world of the living and the world of the dead are intertwined, each culture has its own ideas about this process. In some traditions, it is believed that the first night is a night of trials. On the second, a meeting with ancestors occurs, and the third is a time of transition to the world of spirits, where the soul finally finds its peace. Such events simply cannot but excite, causing both fear and hope. The first time after death is a special moment, having meaning not only for the deceased, but also for the living. We, remaining here, turn to memories and feelings, which creates an inextricable link between the two worlds. This is irrefutable evidence that death is not the end, but only the beginning of a new stage, full of mysteries and discoveries. These 3 nights are only part of the great journey that continues beyond the obvious. Each life is an opportunity for growth and transformation. Death is not an imprisonment, but only the beginning of the next stage in an endless chain of existence. Each of us will one day become part of this transition, and our experience can be created through love, forgiveness, and agreement with ourselves and the world around us.